Leo 18, a teacher of chemistry. Well, the chemist is somebody with the ability and knowledge to transform. Takes elements here and elements there, mixes them together, and there's a transformation, a chemical reaction, which is irreversible. So the image here is a teacher of chemistry, somebody who's able to transform and able to explain how to do that. We're talking about a fairly rare person who's really assimilated this ability. And in the esoteric world, we call these people magicians. Somebody who can actually take the elements of any situation and mix it together in a certain way to create a desired result. That defines a magician as well as a chemist. And in some ways, any cook in the kitchen, anyone that takes a little bit of this, a little bit of that, pinch of salt and so on and creates a meal, they're actually conducting a demonstration of their ability in chemistry to take the raw elements of possibility and turn them into something nourishing and good. So a chemist and a cook are very similar beings. So we're talking about a master chef as much as a teacher of chemistry here. Now that which creates outcomes is the mind. We need to remember that. We need to actually treat the mind with a lot more care and concern than we do, generally speaking. People allow their minds to be bent out of shape and not then useful for purpose. They ruin the most powerful tool that a human being has, the mind. And it is ruined when you give it no service, when you don't maintain it, when you allow it to be abused. That's how it gets ruined. So to correct that process, you train it, you exercise it, you protect it from influences which will destroy its clarity and focus and precision. So on the one hand, we must be careful not to engage in silly ideas. A lot of people who are studying the mysteries get seduced by the silly ideas. It's a very hard discipline to understand how things work. It's not intuitively clear. In fact, it's actually veiled, as if on purpose, and perhaps on purpose. Life looks as though it operates according to certain principles, but it doesn't. It is not based on the simple Newtonian mechanical cause and effect formula that is the underpinning of all of our teachings, even though for 100 years we've known that wasn't true on the level of science and physics and chemistry. We just know that there's another factor at play in our perceptions of reality, and that factor is the mind. The experiments with light demonstrate that light is neither a particle nor a wave, but in fact both, according to how you choose to see it. It's counterintuitive in the extreme. By wave we mean a series of probabilities. By particle we mean something that we can hold and measure and contain and even weigh. And the idea that light is something like that, a physical thing, a photon that has physical reality, was a reasonable explanation for how it worked. But equally, that there's this probability that it could be like this, but it might be like that. That also explains how it operates. Both of those are true according to what experiment you use. It's a fascinating understanding in science. And it's old. This experiment has been around for a very long time, but still we choose to believe in the mechanical idea that cause gives rise to effect. And although that's true in a limited sphere, the sphere of our existence is not contained within that limit. So to understand this, you have to really think it through. You have to read about it, you have to look into it, you have to test it. And that's the other thing about a chemist, is that a chemist is associated with experimentation. So all of these Sabian symbols are metaphors. Here we have somebody who is experimenting to see what works in the process of transformation. And when you look at how we do that in our lives, you'll realize that we try things out to see if they work. These are our ambitions, really, our goals. We'll see if we can have that. We can see if we can do that. And sometimes we can, sometimes we can't. Trial and error. If we can't, then we try a different way, and we learn, and we get to clarify the mind by doing that. If we try something and it doesn't work, then we need to learn from that in order to become clearer of mind. If we try something and it does work, that's actually seen as a success. But in fact, of course, it gives us no great knowledge. If we always do what we know will work, we're not learning anything. We're just demonstrating how clever we are, but we're not moving forward. So in one real sense, a failed experiment is worth more than a successful one. So those people that show off their lovely big houses and big cars and big bank accounts and so on, they're demonstrating how unsuccessful they are in the path of knowledge. Whereas somebody who's really troubled all of the time, they can't make anything work, they're poor, they're dissatisfied, they're also demonstrating failure. However, those of us who try to do something new, and sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but actually we've got the foundation of life sorted out. We never get too upset by anything. That's the path. That's the path of happiness. And this is the result that we're looking for in our experimentations with life. What life strategy works for us in order to be happy? If we actually want money because we think it will make us happy, and we get money and we're not happy, what do you learn from that? If you have a smidgen of intelligence, you'll realize that your axiom, your starting point that money will make me happy is false. Because you have money and you're not happy. It's bound to be false. So the advice really is not to go for money because it will make you happy, but to go for happiness. And then to study what actually makes you happy. There are rules that work, and there are rules that society imposes upon us. They're not the same things. The rules that work, they're the laws of life. And you have to learn them if you want to master life. And then there are rules that society wants us to obey. And at the beginning, you have to master them in order to know how it all works for society. You have to learn what the rules are in order for you to be able to break them. You won't get very far in the path of a magician or a spiritual seeker unless you're willing to break the rules. Because the rules have been set up specifically to stop us. The power possessors over the centuries, the big they, don't want individual people to be powerful. And as soon as you've understood what the rules of life are, you're powerful. You know how to. You know how to make it all work. And therefore you have to understand these two sets of rules. Society's rules, learn them so that you can break them. Where necessary, wherever necessary, at your choice, according to your own conscience. And that will have an effect. There will be somebody trying to stop you breaking the rules, and you'll have to duck and weave to avoid the power possessors claiming the right to imprison you and fine you and so on. That's a part of the game. You've got to learn how to avoid those people. And then you have to learn the real rules of life if you want to actually become joyful as a way of life, a default condition of life. And they're fairly simple. They're not very large in number either. The basic one is the golden rule. Only do to others what you want done to you. And to know that the mind is king, the mind is queen, the mind is everything.